If I told you that a foreign-built tank once stood toe-to-toe with our mighty M1 Abrams and even outperformed it in some trials, you might laugh. But history tells us that this actually happened. In 1987, in the deserts of Saudi Arabia, a Brazilian tank called the Osorio surprised the world. And yes, on paper, in certain tests, it even beat the Abrams. But this story is not simply about Brazil. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you subscribe to Military Giant. Join us, Americans who honor our military heritage and believe in the unmatched strength of our armed forces. Hit that like button, share this video, and help us keep spreading the truth about America's power to the world. Because here we don't just tell stories. We remind the world why the United States stands as the ultimate arsenal of democracy. Brazil had climbed to become the fifth largest arms exporter in the world, behind only the United States, the Soviet Union, France, and Britain. But unlike us, or the Soviets, or the Europeans, Brazil wasn't exporting weapons for ideology or alliance building. It was purely business. The company leading that charge was Engesa, founded in 1958. They started building machinery for oil fields, but soon moved into armored vehicles. By the 1980s, they had big ambitions to create a main battle tank that could compete with NATO standards. And so, the Osorio was born. Now, here's the difference. The Abrams was the product of decades of American research, massive defense budgets, and Cold War urgency. It was designed to face Soviet armor head-on in Europe. The Osorio, on the other hand, was more like a global Frankenstein. It had a German transmission, British fire control systems, Belgian optics, French guns, and Dutch night vision. It was clever engineering, but it wasn't truly Brazilian, and it certainly wasn't truly independent. The first prototype of the Osorio came in 1984 with a 105mm gun. The second in 1986 carried a 120mm smoothbore, the same caliber as NATO's finest. This was the tank Brazil pushed into Saudi trials, aiming to win a billion-dollar contract for over 300 vehicles. Now let's look at those trials. The desert. Tests were grueling, designed to expose weaknesses. Tanks had to cross trenches, climb slopes, endure long-distance drives on and off-road, run engines for hours in the heat, tow broken-down vehicles, and fire live rounds against moving and stationary targets. It was a complete test of endurance, firepower, and reliability. And to everyone's surprise, the Osorio held its own. In fact, in some categories, it was the best. During gunnery trials, at a range of 4,000 meters, the Osorio was the only tank to hit the target. The Abrams missed. Against moving targets at 1,500, 2,000, and 2,500 meters, the Osorio scored 8 hits out of 12. The Abrams managed only 5. France's AMX-40 and Britain's Challenger 1 fell even further behind. In autonomy trials, which measured how far a tank could travel on a single load of fuel, the Osorio dominated. Crossed 400 kilometers, leaving the Abrams and the others trailing in the desert. In sheer efficiency and endurance, the Brazilian machine looked unstoppable. For a brief moment, it seemed like David had beaten Goliath. Saudi crews praised the Osorio's accuracy and mobility. Brazilian officials celebrated, and Engesa dreamed of a massive contract that would transform Brazil into a tank power. But here is where reality hit hard. The Abrams was more than a tank. It was America. It was NATO. It was reliability and long-term support. Buying the Abrams didn't just mean buying steel. It meant buying an alliance, buying trust, buying into the power of the United States Army and its global supply chain. By 1990, the Saudis made their decision. Despite the Osorio's strong performance, they chose the Abrams. Engesa collapsed under debt. The Osorio became a forgotten relic with only a handful of prototypes surviving in museums. So yes, it is true. In firing accuracy, in autonomy, and in certain desert trials, the Osorio outperformed the Abrams. It was faster in endurance, more efficient in fuel, and more precise at extreme range. On the battlefield of tests, the Abrams was defeated. But war is not decided only by machines. It is decided by politics, alliances, and power. And in that larger battlefield, the Abrams was untouchable. It had the United States behind it, the arsenal of democracy, the guarantee of support, the weight of NATO. The Saudis knew that when they chose Abrams, they weren't just buying tanks. They were buying security, partnership, and the confidence that only America could provide. That is why, decades later, the Abrams continues to roll as the symbol of American power. It is proof that military dominance is built not only in steel and technology, but in trust, alliances, and global leadership. The Osorio may have defeated the Abrams in numbers on a test range, but it could not defeat America. And that is why the Abrams stands today as a legend, while the Osorio is nothing more than a museum piece. Because in the end, machines come and go, but American strength endures.